Hello everyone, my name is Ian and today I'm going to talk to you about adopting an animal from a shelter versus from a breeder. Now, given the number of animals placed in shelters and taken care of in shelters a year, the number of those animals that are killed each year, and the sheer cost of a breeder adoption compared to an animal shelter adoption, would have any logical and money-conscious person choose to adopt an animal from a shelter over a breeder. Each year there are countless number of animals cared for by shelters in the United States. That number ranges from 6 to 8 million dogs and cats, and that is according to the Humane Society Common Questions About Animal Shelters. Now, of those 6 to 8 million dogs and cats that are cared for by shelters all over the United States, 3 to 4 million, so approximately half of those dogs and cats, are adopted to families who want them each year. And that is according to the Humane Society Pets by Numbers. If 3 to 4 million animals are rescued each year, and 6 to 8 million was the original number, there's still 3 to 4 million, so still about half of these animals that are left at the shelter. The number of those animals left at the shelter, many of them are going to be put to death. That number is approximately 2.7 million animals a year. It's 2.7 dogs and cats, puppies, kittens, older dogs that have lived longer, or any combination that you can think of age ranges of animals are put to death. They could be a week-old puppy, or they could be a 10-year-old kitten, or 10-year-old cat, And that number, compared to the number of animals in the United States today that have families and in households, is about 3%. So 3% of animals killed, you might think, oh, that's a good number. And it is. It's not a terrible number. If you compare that number to the 1970s, the 1970s they killed between 12 and 20 million animals per year. Now, compare that to the number of animals in households in the 70s, that is about 25%. So obviously, the trend has gone down over the past 40 years, but there still seems to be a problem of people rather going to a breeder than rather going to an animal shelter. Now, the United States has definitely progressed, like I said, in the past 40 years, going from 25% of killing animals to 3% of the animals being killed. But the problem still exists. Now, the sheer cost of a breeder adoption compared to an adoption in an animal shelter can be phenomenal. The average puppy breeder cost for a purebred, usually registered puppy is $500 to $1,000, and all you get is the puppy, and usually the first round of shots, and that's really about it. And that's according to Pet 360 Dog Adoption Fees Explained. Now, the average adoption cost from a shelter is going to depend on several things. It's going to depend on the animal shelter itself. It's going to depend on the animal, whether it's a dog or a cat. It's going to depend on the size of the animal, and it's going to depend on how much that animal has cost the shelter. Now, you might think, oh, well, that might become a lot of money. It could, but when you think about it, you're giving this animal a new life. You're not just telling that animal, no, I'd rather just go buy one for a certain price than get one from here. Now, like I said, the average adoption cost depends. Now, an example, I myself adopted a lab from a shelter, and it cost me $60. Now, if I would have went to a breeder and got that same black lab, it would have cost me way more than that. And then I would have had to buy on top of it, I would have had to have the dog microchipped, shots, cage, bed, food, all that. And when you think about it, the adoption for $60, that covered any health care that the dog was needed, the shots, and microchipping. And then I was even given coupons for a cheaper fixing for my dog and for a cheaper rabies shot. So not only was it a lot cheaper to go through a shelter for me, it was also helped me in the long run because it saved me money. So based on the outrageous difference, if nothing else, your wallet would appreciate you for adopting an animal at a shelter versus a breeder. Like I said before, there are 6 to 8 million animals cared for by animal shelters in the U.S. yearly. Approximately half of that number are adopted and the other half are put to death. Those could be young animals that still have many years of life and a lot more love to give to a human, or it could be an older animal that was just the human didn't want them anymore, or they've been living on the streets their entire life. The sheer cost of breeder animals compared to a shelter adoption can be a severe difference. With all of this said, people should be more willing to adopt an animal of their liking from a shelter than instead of possibly sealing the fate of that animal. And the fate of that animal could very well be death. Thank you.